Hello, this is Nicole, and this is Pretty Amazing People podcast. Today's guest is actually somebody I wrote on my list the minute I started this podcast. I have watched him, I have been a supporter. Certain people may have heard me talk about him and this organization. I've been wanting to share his story here, but I think right now is actually the best and perfect time as we are in need. Everyone's in need. This organization is in need. He is a founder. He had originally founded an organization, PCRF, the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund. They did amazing work. And then this year, he began HEAL Palestine, an organization, to help deal with the crisis going on currently. He gives a lot of information. I learned a lot, and I know you will too. He sees things that I know we are not being given the information. He shares, he's been doing this even longer than I thought. So it's a very informative. I hope you listen to the whole podcast. He shares some stories. It's very enlightening. And I'm just really, really grateful to be able to talk to this inspiring human being, humanitarian. Today's guest is Steve Sosebee, co-founder of HEAL Palestine. Hi, Steve. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
I have been following you, and actually, you were one of the first people on my list when I started my podcast. And I think the timing right now is actually perfect. So I know you're busy, but I would love for people to hear what you're doing. I always talk about you and your organization, but I think it's even better if they hear it from you. So, how did you're from Ohio, right? And you
Yeah,
ended up
I
in Palestine
am.
as a
I did.
journalist?
First, as an activist, I was a college activist, and I went in the first intifada, the first year of the first intifada, which was December of 1988. I got to go with a group of students to see firsthand during the spring break, or the not spring break, excuse me, winter break, Christmas time, for 3 weeks between fall and spring semester. I spent that time in Palestine for the first time and toured around with other students and got to stay with Palestinian families. We stayed in Hebron, we stayed in Gaza, we stayed in Ramallah and Jerusalem, and visited, all of the refugee camps and the towns and villages, and heard from human rights workers and from doctors and from people themselves on the ground who are being affected every day by the occupation and what life was like, hearing from Israeli peace activists, seeing the settlements. It's just and complete and absolute experience of, it's just an eye-opening time for me, obviously, to go there as a young man and to see firsthand what people were enduring under occupation, their struggles, and how hard it was for them, but also how strong they were and how resilient they were. So it really inspired me to finish my university and go back and try to do anything to serve a very just cause. I mean, I think it's the Palestinian cause is one of equality. They're not equal in the Gaza Strip and West Bank. Why? They live under military occupation. They should be either independent in their own state or a part of a greater Israel/Palestine, which everybody is equal and has equal rights. Either of those two options have not been provided to them, so they continue to suffer as a result of this inequality. And for me, as an American and as somebody who was born free, I felt very strongly that, particularly my government's role in continuing this policy of second-tiered citizenship and living without any equal rights put a responsibility on me to do something as somebody who believed in political activism as a way of life, as a mission of, that I believe strongly I should be working for justice. Palestine became the main issue for me, and I had the chance to go back after I finished university and work as a journalist, and that's when I started meeting a lot of injured children who needed medical care they couldn't get locally. And as a young man, I wanted to do more for the children there and to find ways that I could have a more effective impact. I didn't feel at that time, and it was pre-internet. So, even today, writing only goes so far, social media only goes so far. It's great at exposing, but if we don't act on doing something positive for the people there, then the impact can be relatively limited. So as a journalist, the impact was relatively limited. And I wanted to have a bigger impact. So starting to bring injured kids to the U.S. for medical care they couldn't get in Palestine really gave me an opportunity to do more to serve the Palestinian cause and to serve the cause of justice and freedom and show a sense of solidarity and at the same time do something positive for injured children, kids who are being injured by my government's support and weapons and assistance, and also for children, just on a human level, they needed medical care they couldn't get. It really didn't matter if they were Palestinian or anywhere. They just happened to be Palestinian. And that was the cause I was working on. So placing them in American hospitals was something that I felt gave me a sense of purpose and a greater meaning to my life and also to my service and mission to the Palestinian cause. And then within that course of work, it gave me an opportunity to organize and support the Palestinian community here in the U.S., giving them a chance to be more organized and more impactful rather than some of the frustrating ways and limited ways that they had been previously involved. And also exposing these kids and giving them a sense of humanity within the American public who have dehumanized the Palestinians through media, through policy for many, many years, which has resulted in this ongoing genocide today. This situation in Gaza today is a result of decades and decades of dehumanization through our media, through our government's policies, through our academic interpretation of the Palestinian cause to a younger generation, and so on and so forth. And bringing kids here, getting them medical care also showed people, hey, these are children. They're being injured. They're being, having their limbs blown off. They're suffering from bullet injuries. They're 5 years old. They're 10 years old. This is unacceptable under any context. So hopefully that also was something positive that came about bringing these kids. And then in the course of building an organization, I founded the Palestine Children's Relief Fund in 1991 and started bringing kids. I met my first wife who was Palestinian. Together, she was a social worker. So we built an organization together for 17 years, which brought hundreds and eventually thousands of injured children from the West Bank and Gaza, and even expanded that service into Syria and Iraq, where other conflict areas were impacting children. As a humanitarian organization, we were not limited to one area geographically, but the vast majority of kids were Palestinian and got them free care. And then also started arranging medical teams and medical missions to go into Gaza, go into the West Bank and provide services on the ground in local hospitals that were unavailable, training local doctors to improve quality of health services, and then taking on larger projects as the organization grew. And after my first wife passed in 2009 from leukemia after 17 years of marriage and work together, we opened the first pediatric oncology department in her name in Bethlehem. And that was really our first major kind of infrastructural project for the Palestinian health sector. That was all privately funded through our communities and individual supporters. There was no government or corporate funding for that. And then we saw we could do much bigger services within the health sector. So we started addressing some of the defects and deficiencies in the Palestinian health sector to improve the quality of care, reduce referrals outside because many children were being denied access for care because of restrictions of movement out of Gaza or out of the West Bank. As everyone probably knows, to leave the West Bank and Gaza Strip, you need a permit from the Israeli military, and often that permit was denied, even for children with cancer, even for children with heart conditions, even for children who have medical conditions that could not be treated locally and were accepted in hospitals outside, even in Israeli hospitals. A lot of those kids were denied treatment. So improving the quality of services locally was our main goal and objective. And we were doing that. We built another cancer department for children in Gaza. We opened up emergency departments in Jenin and Hebron. We um, uh, opened a catheterization lab and a pediatric intensive care unit in Ramallah. Our impact in the health sector was pretty significant as far as infrastructure and also the quality of services. And then October 7th happened. And obviously that changed the whole trajectory of what our organization was about. And then I left on January 1st. I left PCR after 30 years of building. I founded the organization and built it. But the vision was different. The organization's culture had changed, PCRFs. It was not one that I really felt strongly about, and decided to, after October 7th, to take on a much broader scope. And I felt the impact that I could have and the organization could have was much greater, and the need was much greater in Gaza in particular, with the destruction not only of the health sector, where we continue to be one of the leading organizations on the ground to help address some of the needs there, whether it's with bringing injured children out for medical care, whether it's sending medical teams in to operate and treat patients locally, whether it's providing and supporting local development of infrastructure, whether it's supporting doctors for education outside in Egypt to get their medical degrees and return to Gaza one day to rebuild the health sector. We have a lot of programs going on to continue in health, which is something I've done for 30 years as I built and led PCRF. And then we're taking on, as I mentioned before, there is a need for a much broader scope. So taking on the area of education, where the entire education system in Gaza has been destroyed. Like not a single child is going to school right now in Gaza, not a single graduate student, not a single high school student. They're all sitting at home idle, not at home. Their homes have been destroyed over 90%. They're all sitting idle without any education, and that's obviously going to have a very detrimental immediate and long-term impact on Palestinian society, on the ability of these kids one day to be independent and have a future. And then our organization also has taken on the area of aid as we face this existential crisis on the ground in Gaza, where children are starving right now, where people are going without food, where medicine is being denied, where there's no clean water, there's no shelter. Children don't have clothes, they don't have the basic necessities. We're on the ground trying to provide as much humanitarian aid as we can, given the fact that the uh, access to people in need is severely restricted by the Israeli government. Bringing in shipments of food, bringing in the shipments of medication, medical equipment, and so on is severely impacted. And despite that, we do run a kitchen that feeds over 5,000 people a day. We're building shelter on the ground there. We're building makeshift classrooms and starting to run classrooms for children. And we have a lot of different programs involved in the area of aid and in education. And then the final one that we're working on, and this is one of the reasons we started HEAL Palestine on January 1st, which is to develop a leadership mentorship program for these kids who've been affected and will be affected the rest of their lives. The children who are traumatized, which is every single child in Gaza, has been suffering from psychological trauma as a result of their exposure to violence, to the killings, to the destruction of their homes, to the living in insecurity and in poverty and in hunger, the lack of any kind of sense of security and stability in their lives. Every single child's traumatized. And although we do run a mental health program in Gaza for these children, it's far, far short of even what the most basic needs are. The needs are overwhelming. So we've taken on a leadership mentorship program. So when we're in the post-genocidal phase and rebuilding Gaza, we'll be able to hopefully develop a program of mentorship for these kids and help rebuild their lives, give them a sense of self-esteem, and give them an opportunity to overcome this nightmarish scenario and hopefully have a future.
This is where we come in. Yeah, I've been following you and I looked for something really legit, love what you do. And you give us a chance. We all need to do more. Like right now, like you said, when this is done, there's so much that needs to be done. And I like how you're explaining, because sadly, I know so many people, they don't know this has been going on this long. So the fact that you've been at this so long, I love the stories. Like you used to post stories even before this about going back and visiting. And I see the young men now that you had helped and brought into now they're working. You got the medical aid in their back in Palestine. The first child that you met and what started this life-changing experience, Mansour.
Yes, Mansour in Hebron. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it seems like there's a lot of amputees. There's a lot of people don't even realize that there's people that were sick before. Um, what are you seeing the most right? And this has been going on. Like you had a crisis 2 years ago. You had a crisis 10 years ago. It seems like there's been these things that I want people to hear, like how long you've been doing this. I mean, this is 80 years almost. So
80 years of displacement and even over 100 years of a foreign colonial power, Great Britain, coming in and giving the land of Palestine to a people who were 5% of the population, um, and creating this whole conflict of land and rights for the indigenous population, the Arabs, Christian, and Muslims, who are denied equality on their land and have been since then. So the conflict's been going on since then, since the Balfour Declaration. However, I do want to address one point you said, which is people don't know this is still ongoing. This is completely unacceptable. We live in a modern era where information is more accessible than ever in the history of mankind. There's a genocide going on. If you consider yourself an educated person and a humanitarian and a human being, and you're not aware that starvation is taking place in the Gaza Strip, This is man-made imposed starvation in which hundreds of truckloads of food are a few miles away across the Egyptian border being denied, feeding tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of children, women, innocent people in the Gaza Strip, and they're starving, and many have starved to death. And this is documented by the United Nations. If you're not aware of that, then this is a shame on you because we've been through genocides before. And all of us remember from history what happened in the 40s and 30s in Europe to our Jewish brothers and sisters who had a genocide committed against them, the Holocaust. And the big complaint was like, if there was two things, like, first of all, did you know? And Germans always said, I didn't know. I had no idea. Of course they knew. They use that as an excuse. We're not going to do that today. There's no excuse. Everybody knows what's going on. If you don't know, then shame on you. And this is not going to be used as an excuse to clean your name and clean your conscience. Number two is, what are you doing about it? If you're watching a genocide in modern times and you're an American, your country is participating in a genocide. We're participating in the starvation and killing of innocent children. Our bombs and our weapons are being used to bomb innocent children. Over 14,000 children have been killed in the Gaza Strip since October 7th. That's more than 1% of the population. We're not talking about injured children, which is over 30,000 kids who are permanently disabled with amputations, with injuries that will last them the rest of their life. We're not talking about over 1 million children who are now traumatized and will be psychologically traumatized the rest of their lives. We're not talking about the children who are dying from disease or from congenital defects, which could be treated in the health sector, but the health sector has been destroyed. The hospitals have been destroyed. It's been clear. We've seen it. Everybody knows about it. If you're one of those people who's listening to this podcast and you say, I didn't know about this, shame on you. That's not an excuse. Educate yourself. The information is available. It's all very well documented. This is not a period when I started in Palestine in the late 80s and early 90s when information was not accessible and it was controlled by the New York Times or a few news channels which could easily filter and control what you were able to see and the information that you got. The information is available. We know all of the names of the kids who've been bombed and killed. We know all of the names of the children who've been orphaned. And by the way, there's nearly 20,000 orphans in Gaza right now, 20,000 orphans, many of them kids who've lost all of their family members. And this is happening again, as an American, it's happening with your government support and with your tax money. So if you don't know about it, then shame on you. And you cannot make that excuse that the Germans tried to make in 1945 that they didn't know.
That's why we're here. Now, you do have quite a story, and I also want to share that too, because your organization is truly, obviously, passion and love. And you've been, as in your words, blessed to have been in love twice. Would you share that story? Like, it is quite a beautiful story, and of, from where you came from wanting to build that hospital and then meeting Dr. Salman. His
Salman,
name,
yeah, Dr. Zina
Salman.
Salman. I mean, look, most people are not fortunate to find true love in their life once, and I was fortunate to find it twice. Um, I've had and have two very strong, independent, capable, intelligent women, Arab women, who have blessed me with kids, have been guided me in life as their partner and as um, friends and as people who have, brought me so much love and stability in my life. I was my first wife, Huda, God rest her soul. We were married 17 years. We have two daughters, Huda, Dima and Jenna. And I was blessed to have her in my life for 17 years. She was an amazing woman. And our story was a story of cross culture. She was from the West Bank, had never traveled, had never really, lived in a very conservative culture. I'm a guy from Ohio, as you said before. And, to meet and to fall in love and to have a life together and to build something as incredible as PCRF was, I was very blessed and I'm very honored to have that experience in my life. And it's something that obviously has changed me and made me a better person. And then 7 years later to meet Dr. Zina, my current wife, who's also just an amazing woman with so many amazing attributes and um, she's made me such a better person. She's one of the co-founders of HEAL. So basically building two amazing organizations with two amazing women is such a blessing and it's really a gift from God.
And wasn't she working in where you built the cancer? And
Yes, she's a pediatric oncologist and got her fellowship at the Sloan Kettering in New York City and volunteered. She speaks Arabic. Her family's originally from Sudan. And volunteered as a pediatric oncologist to support the building of the cancer department in Gaza, and also she worked as a pediatric oncologist treating patients in the cancer department that we built in Bethlehem in my first wife's name. So imagine the honor of having your wife treat children who are sick with the same disease that killed your first wife in a hospital named after her. What an honor for me and what a privilege. So full circle.
Incredible. Yeah. That's like to me, like Hollywood should be, they're going to be stealing that story.
If it was any other story but the Palestinians, perhaps.
Exactly. I know they'll change it, but anyway, you set the bar high. Like I felt like I said, this is just so paralyzing at times, but we all can do more. But you guys, I watched some of you, you set the bar high. We can all do a little something. And that's why I just want everybody to know that you made it easy for us. We can donate, we can volunteer, we can just share this story. I really love the opportunities you gave us. But tell me about some of the kid, like tell us about like you've been sharing about Asr and Inas and Yassine. Like share a little bit about what's going on with them so we know some of the
Yeah, so one of the things we were the first, I was the first one to bring injured kids from Palestine to the US back in 1990. Mansour, who you mentioned, and his sister Sabah. And that's before I started PCRF. And then so that's something that I feel, you can feel that human connection and see the results of these kids, the transformation that they go through, both physically having medical care that they otherwise couldn't get, but also the psychological impact that it has coming to a country where people are caring for you and there's security and there's food and there's shelter and there's the basic things which in Gaza today children don't have. So we have 6 kids here now being treated. We have many, many more on the way coming for treatment. Some of them, all of them have tragic stories. Anas and Asr, who are in Boston, are 13 and 5. Asr was terribly burned and, has suffered from third-degree burns all over his body, and his brother lost his leg at the age of 5. And their entire family was killed in the bombing of their home. They came with their grandmother, and they're orphans. And, they don't have any brothers and sisters left. They don't have any parents left. And so we can treat them, but how do we heal them psychologically? How do we heal their broken hearts and the psychological impact of having not only the physical injuries that are going to impact them the rest of their lives, particularly Anas with, not having a leg and having to put on an artificial leg every day, but the impact, even more importantly, of losing their entire families. Those are just huge, huge challenges as an organization. And we have to take on that responsibility because our goal is not just to help heal these kids physically, it's to heal their spirits and their souls and their hearts. And that's a much, much greater challenge. We also have a girl named Leanne who's 14 in Chicago. She lost both her legs. She's a beautiful 14-year-old girl. She also lost 2 sisters. And 2 weeks ago, another brother was killed in the bombing of her home. It's just nonstop. So her home was bombed in October. 2 of her sisters were killed. A 1-day-old niece was killed in that bombing. Leanne lost her legs. And here we are again, several months later, another bombing of her home. Her brother was killed. We have Shireen, 11-year-old who's in Long Island being treated. Her father was killed and a brother was killed in the bombing of her home. She lost her leg, 11 years old. She's here with her sister, who's 19, taking care of her with a host family. We have Sarah in an intensive care unit at the Staten Island Burn Center in New York, who was burned over 60% of her body and was denied medical care for a month. She stayed at home in the bombing, in which her 16-year-old brother and her 8-year-old brother were also killed and did not have access to medical care. Her 8-year-old brother died a week after he was injured at home. The family watched him suffer and from burns and to die in front of them, and they had to bury them in the backyard. They had no other option. They could not leave their home. The tanks were surrounding their homes and denying them access to medical care. We eventually got Sarah out of northern Gaza and into Egypt, and then we flew her by med flight to New York, where she's been undergoing treatment for 2 months in the hospital. Every one of these kids has a story that's tragic. Every one of them is resilient and wants a better future. Every one of them is on the road to recovery. But that recovery, again, is not just legs that get them walking again or reconstructive surgery or healing that they deserve and they need, but it's also trying to heal their hearts and heal their spirits, which have been destroyed due to the experiences of losing their families and being injured and suffering this terrible, terrible tragedy.
thank you, your passion and your drive. God, I hope more people want to help and join. How do you see their spirit? I mean, I can't, none of us can even imagine. I read there's not even a definition of the trauma that they're going through. I seen them. I open up my phone, because I want other people to start seeing what we're seeing. It's just tears every day, devastation, inhumanity, and but they don't hate. Like, tell how they are, like their little spirit. They are amazingly strong. As I say, the world is, we're watching, we're learning from them. The Palestine, like, they have a spirit and a heart. um can you share, like, what your experience in seeing them?
I think we're seeing today something that's unprecedented in modern times. Not only the genocide that's being committed on in real time,
Yeah.
for everybody to see and witness, but also a movement among young people to oppose that. And we see it at the university level today with the sit-ins that are taking place throughout the country and growing every single day. It's so inspiring. But I think a lot of it comes from the fact that the Palestinian youth and the Palestinians in general have demonstrated this sense of humanity and resilience, which is unprecedented in the modern world. They don't hate. They resist, but they don't hate. And I've seen that. I'm an American from Ohio. I have no roots to that area. And I've been going and working there and moving freely on the ground for over 30 years. I've never had a single problem from anybody, which they could point a finger at me. I'm an American. My government's the one that's responsible for their suffering. But I've had nothing but compassion, kindness, hospitality from the Palestinian people, and the sense that they understand that this is something that's not related to individuals, but to governments and to policies which are based on injustice, but that individuals like myself and others all over the world stand with them and stand with them more than ever, and that we are here to serve and to support the children and the people and the cause for freedom. It's not a cause to destroy anybody, it's a cause to liberate a suffering and people who are denied their basic rights. And I think that's what I think the world sees that today, and that's why things are starting to change.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear you say that you're seeing change, because I know that we've been through this over and over. I've
30
watched
plus years.
documentaries. I was having more hope, saying they're watching it on social media. It's going to change. And if you turn on any documentary, this story has been told so many times. But
Yeah.
I think the youth, as you said, the universities, they are going to be. We need massive change, and I think they are it, and it's happening. So, Steve, thank you, but how can we help? Would you tell us, like, anything that we could do? I wish I was a doctor. I wish I was a teacher, but I know that you have opportunities for anybody to do something.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we're a volunteer-based organization and we want to be inclusive to everybody who wants to be part of what we're trying to accomplish. We're bringing kids to communities all over the country where we need people to come forward and help them and be friends with them and support them. And so reach out to us at info@healpalestine.org about how you can get involved in the work that we're doing. If you are a physician or you know people who can arrange medical care, we have lots of kids waiting for treatment. If you have a skill set that you think would be beneficial, we have a girl in New York who wants to learn graphic design, a girl who came from Gaza. And she wants to learn photography. She wants to learn cooking. When our kids come here, it's not just about medical care, it's about opening a new world to them of opportunities that they've been denied their entire lives. So this isn't just an organization for teachers or for doctors. It's for anybody who wants to do something positive for the children of Gaza. So reach out to us. If you can donate, donate. If you can provide other kinds of help, reach out and see what ways you can get involved with Heal Palestine, because we accept all forms of support and we need all forms of support to respond to this crisis, because it is so the scale is beyond what we have resource wise or anybody has to respond to. And everybody has to give more than just witnessing. We have to actually act. So that's where we're asking people to come forward and be a part of Heal Palestine and join us, spread the word, and get involved.
And just to show and remind that there is more good in the world and people are good. How is your response of reception from people?
Amazing. I mean, I think, like I said earlier, the whole narrative of the Palestinian struggle, the whole support network has altered so significantly in the past few months. It's mostly a generational shift where people under the age of 30, 25 understand what this issue is about. They get it and they want to be involved. But even older people who do who understand this is a human issue. At the end of the day, the Palestinian people have to have their freedom. That's it. That's the core issue here, and people get that now. And it's significantly changing in the number of people who want to help and do something positive. We're not based on hatred. We're not based on hurting anybody. We're not based on denying anybody their rights. We just want equal rights for everybody. And we want to help those who've suffered from the lack of medical care, from the lack of food, clothing, basic humanitarian services, basic necessities to live. We're an organization that's providing those necessities, so we need your help to continue.
Steve Sosebee, thank you so much for your heart, your humanitarian cause, and for giving us a way to help as well. Thank you so much.
It's my pleasure and thank you. It's an honor to serve the Palestinian cause and the Palestinian people.
Thank you, Steve Sosebee, for taking your time to help educate us and tell us how we can help with Heal Palestine. I hope you learned a lot. I know I did. It definitely inspired me to want to do more, and every little bit counts. Like this podcast, like this post, share it, comment, help it be seen. Follow Heal Palestine on social media, email them, and they are doing incredible things with a demand, like he said, that it's going to take a lot of us, and it's going to be a collective effort for a very, very long time to heal. Heal this world, heal Palestine, heal these children, heal everyone that has been affected by this. I wake up every morning and I open my phone and I just see things and sometimes just cry. It's things I actually wouldn't, being holistic, I didn't even watch before. I would turn away. I always said, don't let your body and your nervous system see these things, but I won't look away. And I just want to put it out there of what is happening. Just like Steve said, he really wanted to share the truth and of what Palestinians have been experiencing for a very, very long time. And he's been helping these children for decades. So he, not only the medical, they're being brought over. I'm seeing horrific burn victims and amputees, double amputees, triple amputees. It is just unbelievable what we're seeing. So I do, as he said, it is about, humanity. We believe in peace, and I do believe change is coming and peace will happen, I believe, but it's not going to happen just wishing and hoping. These horrors are happening on our watch, and we all need to do something. Some of us can do even more. So again, just as little as liking, sharing, donating $5. If you have it, donate 500. It's going to an important cause. I can't emphasize that enough, but this is a cause that is dear to my heart. But as a human being, I think we should all have all eyes on this and care and pay attention and educate. I appreciate you listening. I know you're educating, you're learning. I've been studying and educating myself for the past 7 months. It's impressed and shocked some of my friends how much I have learned and become vocal about this. It is very important. And of course, my next podcast will be something else regarding Palestine and helping to share our story. So again, thank you so much. Follow healpalestine.org, go to their website. And again, don't forget, keep talking and talking about Palestine. Thank you.